call to order the June 15th meeting of the EMS Commission for Fitch-Rona EMS District. Roll call.
Roll call. Roberts.
Here.
Hilla. Johnson.
Here.
Cronin.
Present.
Lonsdorf. Kaiser McHenry. Wheeler.
Here.
Luganbull.
Here.
Chief Anderson. And
I'm getting my mic to work here.
Connie's on too.
Did you catch
She's
it?
just
Connie,
on mute.
got it.
Here.
All right. Thank you. Public comment. Chief, are there any comments?
I had nothing.
Anybody have any other public comment to share? All right. Review and approval of the meeting minutes from May 18th. They're provided with the packet. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, edits? Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The minutes from May 18th, 2023 are approved. Chief's report.
All right, let me share my screen. And there it is. I think I can move the faces up there. So this got emailed out. This got emailed out to you. Usual stuff that's on there. As you can see, we're things leveled off a little bit at 3% for last month, but still on target for an 18% increase in call volume this year. Still hitting that 5,000 call mark by the end of the year. Other stuff to note on there that I've kind of been bringing more and more to your attention is the out of resources number that's there. So 21 times last month, all of our vehicles were out. And so year to date, that is 12 times that the city of Madison actually had to come in and pick up calls for us in those first 5 months. So about 2 times a month, we are out of resources at the point somebody else has to come in. And I will share with you already this month, we've actually added 3 more calls to that. So it's just everybody's busy everywhere. But as we watch that go up, more than sooner than later is getting that additional staffing in to take care of our district. So yep, about 13 calls a day we run as an average. Working on our training already for this month. We're back kind of at them doing Alliant Energy things. Earlier this week was out and did a CPR class out the Badger Parent Needs Network. Had a great turnout there. We've been out at Epic this week as well doing some Stop the Bleed stuff in collaboration with them. So getting more and more people out there to help us do our job. Rest of the data is there for you to look at. Aging report, as usual, still working on Three Rivers to get a good solution how we get that 180-day number back down. That is double where we planned on being. We also, as you can kind of see there, we continue to grow as far as our run income continues to climb. So I think it's just a matter of the busier we are, the more calls we're getting, and just for them trying to keep up. But still working on that, letting you know that my eye is on that. As far as our cash on hand, you'll see that listed there. One thing we do need to fix is historically the interest money that comes with those CDs goes back into our operating budget. There's actually that line item in there that says interest income. So the new CD that we set up, that was $150,000, that's not happening. So we actually need to get that fixed so that the interest we get on those is dumping back into our operating fund. Otherwise, we're sitting pretty solid. We'll be sending out the checks. I guess it's already the 15th. We'll be sending out the invoices for the second half of the year's funds to the municipalities in the next couple weeks here for the remainder of the year. Our usual assigned fund balances there. This will be the first month because I forgot to put it on last month. That we'll have the GASB 54, which just identifies what those fund balances are. We did actually got a ship notice for our EPIC grant, which is our power stair chairs. Got notice yesterday that those did actually finally ship. wherever those wheels came from, they got them. So we'll be getting, using up that EPA grant here towards the end of the month, as well as one of the ARPA funds there. Our cot also, our new power cot also shipped. So those expenditures should get spent next month. We've been hanging on to them for a while. No donations last month, but I've got some June anniversary dates. Molly Jesberger has been with us part-time and now full-time for 21 years. Tom Bates, I always like to bring him up. He's our last lingering volunteer still out there. He's been with Fitch-Rona for 33 years as a volunteer basic EMT and went to paramedic school on his own. He rides on Sundays for 4 hours as part of the crew, still as a volunteer. So Ryan Robertson, Jamie are two of our full-timers have been with us for 3 years, and same thing with Cam. Only other updates that I put on here that I started adding last month is, I believe I brought to you, so we had Casey Schmidt, who took a job with the city. He starts next week. So Jamie Ennis, who I talked about with the milestones, was actually hired into the full-time position filled by Casey's vacancy. So we'll actually do a swearing in for her next month as we bring her on board. And then underneath that, I've shared that one of our employees is out on an extended medical leave. Wishing him full recovery, but I know he's kind of looking at the potential of having to go out on a disability. So Amy Hansen is one of our other LTEs. So actually made the decision to hire her to fill his spot on the schedule. She knows that the complete understanding if our employee makes a full recovery and comes back, then there's the potential she will essentially be laid off. But she's in a position where she can actually do that. So we brought her on board, and then we don't have to try to figure out a full-timer schedule and just keep filling it with our part-timers. So we'll also do a swearing in for her next month as well, if they both can make it. Then one thing I added at the bottom, working with the employees on this as well, is I thought kind of starting to do some shout outs. Once or twice a month, I get messages from the public saying thank you very much to some crews that have done a great job on patient care or whatever the reason, as well as the fire department, right, did some difficult calls. So I thought I would actually start throwing these on here. I think it's kind of a great opportunity to recognize some of our employees. But so the tail end of last month, the patient called with actually a question about a bill and just said he knew his crew was Amy Hansen and Sarah Imhoff, and just said let them know that they did a good job. So I wanted to let you know, as well as their fellow employees, they did a good job. So I'm going to try to start doing some shout outs for them. Any questions on that? Otherwise, I'll pull up the in-house budget stuff.
Recognition is always a good thing.
Chief, I have a question about the aging accounts,
Yes.
the 180 and plus. At what point do we decide that a bill is not any longer collectible and more or less give up on it? Or what happens when we decide that?
So technically they get a 30, 60, and 90-day notice, and at 90 days, it goes to a collection agency. So our billing company does not do the collections. They work on it as long as it's active. But essentially, if nobody ever answered any or replied to any bills at 90 days, 30, 60, at 90 days, so 120 days at the end of that 90 days, that whole invoice would go to a collection agency. It's not always that clean cut. So if we don't have insurance information and we send the patient a request for information, they come back with a bad address, or we get it to them and then they respond back with say their Medicare information, then we bill Medicare. Medicare takes their time to pay it, and then there's a copay so that it comes back to us for that copay, but then it starts the clock all over again for that copay.
Well, I understand the insurance process. What I'm asking is people that truly can't pay their bill. It gets to be 6 months, is 180 or longer, and we know that they're never going to pay the bill.
If they do not actively reach out, we have a hardship process.
Yeah.
So if they actively reach out for a hardship process, I review all of those in accordance with our policy, and can take a couple of different pathways on that. If they never, we also offer, and I don't always know that that is known, but they can make payments. They can make a $10 a month payment on a $2,000 bill, as long as they make a $10 a month payment, and we don't charge interest. Our billing company doesn't charge interest, so they're just paying what they owe, they can pay $10 a month forever until it is paid off. If they never respond, they stop paying. At 90 days, it goes to the collection agency. Then that collection agency now does the deeper dive. So we do subscribe to tax interception. So providing we can get a social security number, we can file it with the Department of Revenue.
Well, okay, so do we ever not do that? We're a public service that's half paid for by tax money and half paid for by revenue that we generate from insurance companies, essentially, or private individuals. It's well known that many people can't pay medical bills. We seem to be, I wouldn't say flush with cash, but we have enough cash that we could forgive some of this. Is there any process where we can just write off money that's owed to us by people who obviously can't pay it?
If they proactively reach out,
If they work with us, and
yes.
yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. I probably get 1 or 2 a month of a letter. And there's a form, we have it online. It's in English, it's in Spanish. They just have to fill it out, send it back. I look at it. We have a policy that says if you meet the following criteria, we will write it off or reduce it, providing they meet those criteria. But if they make no attempt to let us know what's going on, it goes to a collection agency.
All right. Do people ever get sent to jail, basically, or because they don't pay or can't pay?
No, if ultimately if the collection agency finds them, and then it's the back and forth, they can do wage garnishment, they can do small claims court. We had somebody who fought their bill. I mean, it was clear they had a bill. They actually took us to small claims court. Clearly, we transported them and they lost, and now there was a judgment against them. So I guess potentially, if there's a judgment against them and they didn't pay it, then that's it. That is a rare occasion.
Okay.
It usually goes to the collection agency. The collection agency, should they find them, they will get a lien, and it actually will affect their credit score. And I don't want to say frequently, but a handful of times a year, we get a call from somebody in Missouri that says, I just applied for a home loan and I found out I owed you money from 7 years ago.
No.
Yes, you
Yeah.
do. I'll take my money and we'll remove the lien. But there is a process in place for people who do not have the ability to pay. As long as they are proactive and reach out, we can work through that process.
Okay. I won't take any more of the commission's time. It's, my whole career as a doctor, it's always bothered me that people who need medical care or emergency care might be worried about calling the ambulance or calling the doctor or going to the doctor because they can't afford to pay for it.
Sure.
And there is this odd mix, especially in the ambulance. That's one of the things I like about being on the commission, is that we're both a business, trying to make money and make ends meet and pay all the employees and all that kind of stuff, but we're also a public service
Sure.
run by taxes, and it's this interesting 50-50 mix.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be going after people or charge them money to have the police come to their house or to come help them, but for some reason we do that for the ambulance service.
Sure.
So maybe I'll talk to you sometime about it.
Sure.
Otherwise, so thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions, I guess, related to this? Otherwise, I will pull up let me share my screen. So what you see, if I can make it larger, is gotta find my plus sign. There's where we're currently at as far as our expenditures through the end of May. We are 41% through the year. You can see our run income, just because of that volume, is up quite a bit. We've gotten 50% of our municipal funds. All the rest of this, remember, the number to remember is 41.4, so the rest of these numbers should be fairly close to 41.4. So we're spot on with salaries, with scheduled and unscheduled overtime. As long as those two kind of come together at 41%, we're actually doing okay as far as our overtime goes. Just always doesn't get put in the right pot. But so as long as they're together, we're good. The rest of these, Again, as I explained last month, as long as we're right at that 41%, some of those, like the sick time you're going to see, are a little bit higher. That's because we do the 1 and 2 time payouts over the course of a year. So, I mean, it got paid out now and it won't get paid out again until the end of the year. So some of these that are down here. Things that are a little bit higher, again, are usually, as usual, our medical equipment or medical equipment maintenance, just because we've had a couple more broken things and have done some PM plans. But at the end of the day, our total expenses are at 41.8%, 41.4% through the year. So we're right on with our expenditures. Any questions about that?
Any questions for the chief? The chief's report? All right. Moving on to the subcommittees. The Personnel Committee did not meet. Did the Finance Committee meet?
Same with finance.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item 7, approval of resolution 2023-1, GASB 54 fund balance.
So this is one of those accounting thing that's required. We just don't usually see it till the tail end of the year. So once our audit finally gets done, we know what those numbers are. All this is the legalese that's up here, but it just says the commission recognizes that there's some funds that we are given an assigned value for that you and I can't touch without your approval. And those big numbers for the prepaid expenses and the inventory, right? We can't start reselling bandages to pay bills, as well as the prepaid stuff. That's a lot of our preventive maintenance contracts, our subscription fees. So those are all there. Those are determined by the auditors. All the rest of these things are things that you see listed in that, listed in the end of the chief's report there that have assigned funds to them. And you just have to say that every month, that's what we're going to assign to them. So just need an approval on that.
Are there any questions about what the chief just presented? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll
So
make a
move.
motion to approve.
Second.
And a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. Next is review and approval of accounts payable checks authorized by the chief. That was provided with the email in the packet. Does anybody have any questions for the chief regarding the accounts payable checks? Then we'll move on to a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, next agenda item is presentation of the draft 2024 operational budget.
So I'm going to pass that out, and I think I gave you one. Jim's got one. I'm going to pass that down to Derek. So I have a copy of the line item budget that's up here. That was emailed out to you to take a look at. I thought I'd make it a little bit easier, and I just typed this up today, so I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to look at it before today. I will email it out to the people online here tomorrow so that you have that as well. But what I did is essentially did a budget summary of of highlighting the differences between last year and this year. And I'll just kind of read those off to you and scroll down as you can see it here. So under revenue, as we've kind of seen every single month with the increased call volume, as well as we increased our rates in 2022, we've seen, I believe it was Medicaid reimbursement go up in the state, and they're working on getting Medicare reimbursement up in the state. So with all those little bitty increases, we've actually seen a pretty good increase in our run revenue. So you'll see it's an 8% increase in the operating budget anticipated for next year. To prevent the mistakes of the past, right? Both Michelle and I have looked at this, and we've cross-referenced that number with kind of the two different ways we check that number, which is there's a formula based on the breakdown of ALS calls and BLS calls and no transports and supplies and mileage. That formulas all that out based on our cost about what we would anticipate run being, or our run income being, and then we actually cross-reference with that with the money we actually get in. So we've actually looked at a 2-year average of both of those things, and we met in the middle to come up with this number right here. Right, one of those numbers is much higher, one of the other ones is much lower, so we put it right in the middle. So we anticipate seeing that increase next year. And I would say preface all of that with the understanding that we are an emergency services, and what we do is completely unpredictable. So we can go off of what we've done in the past, but right, our run income could go up 20%. It could drop by, or our run volume could go up 20%. It could drop by 10. It's really an unknown. So this is really just kind of I want to call it a best guess. It's a pretty good way to determine what it should be. One thing you will see, the initial, I'm trying to think who's kind of on this round of budget or processes for this first time this year. The municipalities do pay by equalized value. We don't get that number until August 1st. So what you'll see here, everybody had a 4.4% increase because we're using the equalized value off of last year, because we won't get that number until August 1st. So what you see here is essentially right now, if things stayed status quo, every municipality would go up by 4.4%. That will change based on how things play out. Fitchburg usually goes up a little bit higher. Verona goes up just a little bit higher, but not nearly as much as Fitchburg. And then the town usually stays right about the same. So that this number will get sent to the municipalities prior to that August 1st. But keep in mind that that is not a hard number. That number will change. That's about it for run income. When we get down to expenses, this is kind of where most people are interested in. So the salary line item, a couple of things to note in there. So some of the changes in salaries and wages. So based on the collective bargaining agreement from last year, the represented staff does have a 3% cost of living increase, as well as based on they have some longevity steps in there. So a handful, they have longevity steps, I believe at 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, 15, and 20, I believe. So there's an additional longevity step built into that as well for the increase in represented staff. For non-represented staff, so this is Jeff and I, and we just kind of missed some timing here. So the collective bargaining agreement one, the represented staff, that's a given, right? That's a contractual thing. So we have a little bit of wiggle room for non-represented staff. What I propose, and you can tell me what you feel or not to come back for discussion. Reminder that tonight's really just an exposure to the budget. We'll actually approve it next month. So you'll see it on the agenda tonight that it's just for discussion. But for non-represented staff, which is myself, Jeff, and Michelle, is a 2% cost of living for non-represented staff. And then based on the longevity policy that was approved last month, that would ultimately end up to be about a 3% increase for non-represented staff. So that is what I built in there. Additional things you're going to see in the salary line, because we have our paid internship. Last year is the first year we had our, 2 years ago, we brought our paid intern on, Molly Olson, in the summer. So last year there was just 6 months of pay for her. She works 72 hours a month. So I guess 2 years ago was 6 months. So this was our first year with her, first full year. We have our new intern, which I will share with you next month. We actually have a new intern who will start with us in July here. So last year's budget was a full year for Molly, and then 6 months for our new intern. Her name's Ava. So you'll see the increase because next year now we will have both of those interns for a full year, if any of that made sense to anybody. So from now on, we will in perpetuity always have 2 interns, one in a first year of a 2-year program and one in the second year of a 2-year program. So this will be the year we see the increase that ups those 2 positions to 2 full years. Last one I put in there is the thing I've been sharing with you about positions is I did put in there a salary for a deputy chief of training and operations. I don't recall off the top of my head what that salary range is. When Michelle put it in there, we kind of threw the dart right in the middle of that salary range, and that's what we put in here for at least planning purposes of that range for that new deputy chief. Other things, so that's really under wages, and all those things then trickle down into the retirement plan, it's taxes, everything else, right? So as soon as I raise the rest of that stuff, the rest of those items do go up. As far as the miscellaneous benefits, there's a couple of other insurance plans that are in there, but EAP is one of the programs that comes out of that miscellaneous insurance. We changed providers this year, in the middle of this year, so that cost actually did go down a little bit. When we plan health and dental insurance, we plan an 8% increase in health and a 4% increase in dental. So that's why you'll see that number jump up there. The other thing that is in there is because of the additional deputy chief's position, there is an additional staff member, and we can only assume at this point that it is a family coverage. So there's an entire additional person in there. The two new employees, both Amy and Jamie, filling spots for the other two employees, oddly enough, match exactly what they were taking before. So minimal changes as far as that goes, just the usual cost increase and an additional employee. The sick time over cap, you're going to see that one go just up just a little bit. There will be 2 more employees who in 2024 will meet their cap. Based on 2 collective bargaining agreements ago, they have a cap of 1,296 hours. Once they hit 1,296 hours, anything accrued above that at the end of the year, half of that is paid out into a post-retirement healthcare fund that they manage. It behooves them not to call in sick, to stay healthy, and then they can start accruing that post-retirement healthcare. So 2 more employees will meet that cap, which means we need to start paying into that. That is the largest increase, is that expenses there. Most of those are fairly uncontrollable, short of the wages for non-represented staff. The rest of this down here is right. It's not unimpactful, but it's much more the operational stuff in the big picture. Increased the cost of fuel and oil, matching it significantly closer to the actual expenditures we've had over the last couple of years. If you can think back when those fuel prices got significantly high for us, we still got to put trucks on the road. So over the last 2 years, we have increased that quite a bit, or used it quite a bit. Fortunately, the maintenance and repairs, with our aging fleet, we're starting to get significantly more repairs, but we were able to meet that line item budget last year. So we just kept it the same this for the next year. Other increases you see in there, the radio maintenance, most of the rest of these are just repeats of what I've already said. The radio maintenance cost is updated to match the rising costs of licensing fees. So every ambulance we have has a tablet in it that connects it to the 911 center. We actually pay a maintenance fee for every one of those tablets to connect, as well as updating for the mapping software. The county manages that, but they used to, a handful of years ago, the county covered it and then billed us. It just became a huge deal for them. Now we are actually billed directly from the company. As every cost of software, that cost just continues to rise. So updating the cost for that, as well as we've talked, the new ambulances that will come next year, one of those will replace one of our ambulances. And the other one we will add to the fleet, which brings us up to 6 ambulances in 2024, which means now we need to add another licensing fee and all the things that go with it. So that's why you see that increase in the radios there. The increasing cost of medical supplies and equipment, again, raising that to matching expenditures over the last 2 years. Other things we have done with that as over the last 2 years is because of the kind of increasing cost of supplies and maintenance, we have added maintenance contracts to our COTS, as well as our CPR devices. Last year, the year before, I don't want to call it a catastrophic event, but we had one of the hydraulic systems in one of our cots fail. Was a $6,000 repair to repair that hydraulic system. So at that time, it was actually cheaper to purchase a maintenance program than it was to actually for that one repair. So have since actually put a maintenance program on all of our cots, and then then every one of those, as opposed to trying to, pray and hope that things don't get fixed and come up with these big line items that now we got to find funding for. All of that stuff is covered. They come and do preventative maintenance on it. Being in Wisconsin in the middle of winter here, all it takes is, it is bizarre how an IV cap or a piece of rock salt gets into one of these auto loads and completely shuts it down. So they come in there, they clean it out, we're back in service. And our technician actually lives in the Madison area, got his cell phone number, and he's usually here the same day. So they've actually provided some really good service for us and gotten us back in. With that, just the ongoing cost of then, we did a 3-year maintenance contract for them that we just paid. We didn't have to pay it all up front. We just pay an annual for the next 3 years. Accounting fees. We are, next year will still just be I think Brett calls it a review, not a full audit. But those accounting fees do continue to go up. The legal fees we raised, again, to match kind of what we have expended. So those are the legal fees in general there. That is non-contract related consults, or anything that is contract related comes out of the special contract fee that we pay. But anytime we do for Leslie to come walk through that MOU with us, lots of consults over the last couple of years on kind of some contractual issues. So we've raised that up significantly, as you see there, because we've been using that agency quite a bit more. The last one you'll see there is the reserve funding. If you remember back to last year, right, we were down in that 13% for our reserve funding, kind of based on the budgeting issues in the past. So our intergovernmental agreement says, as a district, we are to be between 15 and 25%. If you remember last month, Brett shared with you that we are at 20%. And if you can kind of look where we even started this process here, we're looking to be above where we were anticipating being already this year for run income. So that will actually benefit as well, which means we were able to take that $58,000 that was put into our fund, our general fund. It was put into our reserve fund this year to get us up to that dollar amount. We're able to take that out of next year's budget, which also happenstance, right, it is helping to offset some of the cost of the increase of all of these other things, these other costs, like our deputy chief. So at the end of the day, I was able to bring our operational costs down just a little bit to 4.6%. Total expenses with the salaries going up, with this going down, so our total expenses went up 6.2%. We're able to bring that percentage, hoping in that run income up to about 8.3%, which means this is ultimately that 4.4% is the snapshot in time of what the municipalities will be asked to pay for. What are your questions of me?
So thanks for the 2024 budget summary. This is super helpful. And thank you for the thorough presentation. Remind me, what are the steps from here to approve budget?
So tonight is my proposal to you, so you get a chance to look at this if you need to take that back to your municipalities. None of them have seen this yet. The first municipality that will get this will be Fitchburg. They're always about a month ahead of everybody else. So this is due to Fitchburg. You guys approved the budget process last night, 2 nights ago. Yeah. So I should be getting the worksheets from Fitchburg tomorrow, I think. So Fitchburg will get their first look at this. So tonight is for you to look at this, ask questions, tell me this is okay, tell me to go back and cut another whatever out of it, or feel free to spend more money, whichever you want to tell me to do. I will make those changes this month. Next month, I will bring this back to you to approve the Fitch-Rona district operating budget for submission to the municipalities. The intergovernmental agreement still says that this budget still has to go through the municipal approval process. So each municipality still needs to approve this, as much as, right, I appreciate the 9 of you telling me I can spend all the money I want. It's got to go back to the municipalities to say that that's okay. So those are the next steps. So that's for you to digest, give me ideas or your thoughts, or if right, you tell me the town isn't going to pay this, go back and cut some more money. I'll say, okay, I will see what I can do. Michelle and I have probably actually more Michelle and I have poured over this to try to get it right as low as we realistically can. Those are the steps. So you have a month now to go back to your municipalities if you want to discuss this with them. Give me some direction so that next month you will approve this to approve it to them. They go through their normal process as they approve. They don't usually approve. Verona approves our budget separately. The other two municipalities approve it as part of their operating budget.
Do you routinely provide this level of presentation to each municipality?
Fitchburg, yes. The other two, no.
Got it.
I am more than happy to the other two, but not usually. I take it back. Fitchburg will get it in their, I think, committee as a whole, as well as the full council. In the city of Verona, it will go to the finance committee. They will get this overview. The town of Verona, I always
Send it
ask.
to our administrator?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sarah will get it. It will go in your packet, but I always offer to come out and say, I will sit down and explain it to you. And I usually just get they're good.
Yeah, Dave will do it. Can I ask you, so the process you do is you very carefully try to estimate all the expenses, then you also estimate the run income, subtract the run income from the total expenses, and then the rest of the bill is what the communities or the municipalities owe.
Yep. I can pull
And
it
the
up.
only thing that would change is in August, when you get the evaluations, the proportions are going to change a little bit.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is
Your
ultimately the sheet.
worksheet, yeah.
Yep. So that first line item, so the full operating budget will be that first, and the numbers are, the numbers, I can see the whole
Okay.
budget thing is about whatever, 25 little worksheets. So the years on here are not correct. The numbers are ish, I think. I'm hoping. I didn't dig this deep into it because until we get equalized values, this page really means nothing. So the full operating budget will go up to the top there. Then the second line item you see is service, so that's what I anticipated getting in run income. The third line that was new in there last year because we know that we do stuff at the Atlanta Energy Center and special events that we know we get about $42,000 in contracted fees, which then ultimately leaves that net operating cost. As of last year, based on the math everywhere else, so run income last year paid for 48% of our overall budget. The municipalities paid for 51.8% of our budget. Right, as a collective, the municipalities did. Then if you go to the line below where the apportionments are, that's where we put in equalized value. So those are last year's equalized value. Put all that in one big pot. Fitchburg is 53.5. City of Verona was 41.6. Town of Verona is 4.7. So that net operating cost then is divided by equalized value. Because everything is equal as of this moment in time, those will change. But yes, so 51%, kind of back to, the supporting of the municipalities to a publicly funded, 51% of our budget is paid for by municipalities, where 48% roughly is actually paid by user fees.
You mentioned the Alliant Energy Center and money brought in. Where do we stand with them versus City of Madison and them?
We charge about the same rate for our services. It's pretty close. It's still a fairly positive, collaborative venture together. For the most part, if they need an ambulance, we will send out an ambulance and staff. If they're just looking for roaming people, the city then will send medics or send EMTs out there. But it's kind of a group effort. We supported the 2 graduations over the weekend, sent an ambulance and a crew out there, and but they were there for Bratfest. So it kind of just works together to see who can staff what, and if they need 6 or 8 people, neither one of us can spare 6 or 8 people on overtime. So then it's actually worked out fairly well. We'll send 2 or 4, they'll send 2 or 4 plus usually a chief, and then we're working collaboratively together. We sign a 1-year. We sign an intergovernmental agreement with them, so it's not a contract. It just says, within these parameters, we will support your events. And it's just a year-to-year renewal. I've not signed like a 5-year contract that says we're going to get out there. Ultimately, at the end of a year, we can walk away at any time. That property belongs to the city. We are not held responsible for it. But it's actually worked pretty good so far. We look at it every year. Staffing it can sometimes be a challenge, but we've made it work so far.
Okay.
We charge them to cover 100% of our costs. As far as what we bill for all of our special events, it's actually not just the Alliant Energy Center. Essentially, I take my 2 highest and paid employees, what their salary plus retirement plus benefits cost. We convert that into $1 per hour, and that is what we charge. That I only can assume that my 2 most expensive employees are going to go sit there. So if my 2 most expensive employees go there, we cover 100% of our cost. If I send 2 part-timers there, a little bit more money is made for the district, but that also, I don't charge them for the fuel to drive up there. If we hand out 3 ice packs, they don't get charged for the ice pack. So even though I don't want to say I'm making money, but there's a little bit of more money that is made by not sending my 2 expensive employees, it's helping to offset, the 15 miles that we drive there and back. So it all kind of comes out.
What do you do if there's a call while you're at the Alliant Energy Center, somebody faints and you have to take them to the hospital? Do you send another ambulance back to take their place?
We call the city.
Okay.
We call the city, yeah. We have an ambulance there. In worst case scenario, we could put them in there and transport. Most of the time, as we initiate transport, we get on the radio and call the city. By the time we have started care, put them on a cot, the city is pulling up, we'll put them in a city truck and they'll take them away.
Oh, I see. Okay, so somebody else will come get them. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's in the city.
Yep, yeah.
If it's out, you staff at Epic too, don't you, for their
Yes.
user group meetings?
Yes.
That would be you then would have to take it.
Yep, same thing. We usually call for one of our own trucks to come. It is there. If it was a life-threatening thing, we could absolutely throw them in and drive them, and then we would backfill.
Yeah.
But most of the time, by the time we get there and initiate care,
Somebody else
somebody's
is
pulling up,
covering.
and then they've swapped trucks before, or they'll just hop in there and go. Yeah. They don't.
So Patrick, a comment and a question. The comment is that you should get your budget worksheets from Brian by July 1st.
Okay.
And the question is, do you have a sense once the shared revenue bill is finalized, which looks likely, what the impact will be for EMS? And do you know what the split will be between EMS and fire?
I don't. I got an email today that the state is putting together a town hall to explain that out a little bit to us. I don't know that off the top of my head, no.
Because that will definitely send some additional funds our way.
Yes, I think one of the challenges is, again, this is, I think, trying to figure that out is because I believe that money goes to the municipalities to offset your EMS cost. So it's kind of I'm going to call it the hidden fees, but right, it goes to the city to reallocate to help pay for this kind of stuff. But that's, no, I'm hoping to learn more about that in the very near future.
Are there other questions for the chief? Hearing none, thank you. That was really helpful.
I guess my feedback would be if you come up with something, if you go back to your municipalities, kind of with this, you've got the document, it generates more questions. Please have somebody from them reach out. If you have more questions, please reach out. Otherwise, Michelle and I will fine tune this over the next 4 weeks, right? Make sure we change the dates and get all the rest of the data that may trickle in. And then you'll see it again next month for approval.
Thank you. Next agenda item is other business as allowed by law. Is there any other business anybody wants to bring to the meeting?
Does the town have a new representative yet?
No. I'm off, yeah. No, not that I know of. Chair Geller is still thinking about it, I think, and talking to people, so.
Okay.
Is there some kind of advertisement out there for people that knows that the position is open? I'm not very up on news, so I haven't seen anything.
No, at the last board meeting, you and I both got reappointed, and all of the people who were already on boards got reappointed, and he said he was still thinking about any vacancies that are there and talking with people, so he didn't name anybody new to any of the boards. Or committees, rather, sorry.
Any other business to discuss? Then is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion passes.